Unifytale, Book 1, Kindness, Part 1, Audio Drama. Loud ringing from a school bell was heard on a Friday afternoon. Children began to flood out of the institution. They were excited to go home and relax. A young girl with blonde hair, brown eyes, and fair skin walked home. She wore a dark green sweater, light blue jeans, and black and white sneakers. She also had a purple and white backpack. Her head hung a bit low as she walked. Voices of the children excited to spend time with their friends are still present, but one voice was standing out. The voice was saying,
"Hey!"
But the young girl paid not much attention to it.
"Hey, you!"
The girl turned to the voice.
"Yeah, you!"
said another child while pointing at her. The young girl's face portrayed fear. It was her bullies. She just wanted to go home, and yet here they were, ready to tease the girl. It had almost become a routine for the bullies to cause harm to the young girl.
"What? You scared, Abigail? No one's here to protect you. No friends."
The first bully said.
Yeah, no friends.
The other bullies chanted. The group of bullies began to take Abigail's backpack. Of course, she struggled as they did so. Sadly, she was outnumbered, so her backpack was taken while the bullies were laughing. They had pushed her to the ground. One of them had a foot on her shoulder, so she couldn't get up so easily.
"You won't be needing this. You're not smart anyways,"
remarked one of the bullies.
"Yeah, and it's not like you're gonna go anywhere in life."
A comment followed by another.
"You probably can't even make friends with monsters."
In their history classes, they would always talk about the war with monsters. It was a myth that they were still alive. Some believed it, and some thought it was just stories to scare the children to not go to the cursed mountain. But the stories of the war are still passed on until present day. Abigail's eyes were covered by her hair as the bullies continued to laugh at her. Her eyes may be covered, but her expression showed anger. She was enraged with the way they treat her. She was sick of it, but she wanted to prove them wrong, so she pushed a foot off of her and stood up. The leader of the group was thrown a bit out of balance, so they staggered.
"Fine!"
screamed Abigail as tears rolled down her face. She began to run. She didn't want the treatment to continue on.
"I'll show them,"
she said in her thoughts as she ran until she reached the cursed mountain. With time, she reached an opening towards the mountain. With the thought it was the portal to the world of monsters, she entered. She slowly walked around a dark cave, not seeing much. She was only looking at her sides as she began to fall. It was unexpected, so she screamed, and her eyes instinctively closed as she fell. All Abigail could feel was the wind as she fell. Her screams were cut short upon impact with a bed of golden flowers. Due to the shock, she passed out. Abigail's eyes slowly flutter open.
What happened?"
She questioned to herself. She slowly sat up as she felt pain from the fall. What mostly hurt for her was her head.
Did I fall?"
She said while placing her hand on her head.
"My child, have you fallen down?"
spoke a quiet voice.
"My child?"
Abigail could only stare at the monster in shock as it came to view. With worry, the said monster rushed to Abigail's side. She had extended a paw out to her and helped her up. Abigail continued to stare as the said monster stood her up and checked for injuries.
"Are you okay, my child?"
asked the monster.
"Yeah, I'm fine. Am I in the world of monsters?"
Abigail thought as they began to walk. She had felt an evil presence watching and grinning at her, then proceeded to hear footsteps as the monster introduced herself.
"My name is Toriel, caretaker of the ruins."
Suddenly, she felt that something collided with her, causing her to fall to her knees. Toriel looked at Abigail in worry as she had fallen once more. She gripped her head as she began to feel immense pain.
My child? Are you okay?
The only response she got was silence. There was laughter from a child unknown that echoed from her within her mind. She felt the evil presence become worse. She looked around in the void of her mind, and there she saw a dark silhouette come charging at her. Slowly, she felt as she was losing control, as if strings were wrapping around her to control her like a puppet. She tried her best to fight back as the strings slowly started to lock in.
God, it feels so good to be alive,
said an unknown voice.
No! What do you think you're doing? Let me go!
The voice chuckled. The child seemed to be struggling with herself, which made Toriel be filled with worry. She held the child, trying to get her attention as she kept gripping her hair slightly, pulling on it. It seems like she was in immense pain. Toriel began healing Abigail in the assumption that she had sustained injuries from the fall she took. She kept on trying to heal the child as she kept wrestling with themselves.
My child?
No!
Toriel's face was filled with shock as she was attacked. Her sides began to bleed as she stared at Abigail. Tears slowly began streaming Toriel's face as she fades into dust, as Abigail tried to call for help. But nobody came. Soon the possessed child had traveled throughout the underground, killing everything in their path. She had passed by a town named Snowden, where she killed dogs who were a part of the royal guard. She solved puzzles that was set by a tall skeleton, which led to a fight. Despite on the verge of death, the skeleton still believed in Abigail, but she then proceeded to crush the skeleton's skull with her foot, thus ending its life. She then continued to walk into the next area, which was filled with waterfalls. The child continued to kill, even killing the so-called captain of the royal guard. Then they passed through a place named Hotlands, killing more, a spider monster, and she even killed the star of the whole underground. They had showed no mercy as they killed innocent monsters. Abigail was filled with despair as she was forced to watch monsters die from her own hand. They killed almost everyone, and the underground was slowly getting empty. Smiling sadistically, they walked down a hall. It is covered with a yellow hue as the windows portray the Delta rune. White light is casted down to the floor from the mosaic windows, and Greek pillars stood as support from the said corridor. The possessed Abigail's footsteps rang out as they walked, but the footsteps soon halted as there was an obstacle. There stood a skeleton in a blue hoodie, white shirt, black basketball shorts with a singular white stripe on each side, and pink slippers. He wore a red scarf that belonged to his brother. The one possessing Abigail began to remember who the skeleton was. It was Sans the skeleton, Toriel's friend, the one who watched them all that time ago.